Okay.
Great. There we go. Sounds good. Well, good morning, everyone. And see, who do you have here? Ida and Kelly. Good morning. My name is Chris from Shopify. Today, we're going to be talking about getting started with Shopify marketing. We're going to talk about paid ads and some of the things surrounding paid ads. Let me share my screen so we can all see what we are talking about. Hopefully, that's working. So I have the chats open. So as people pop in and ask questions, we can answer those. There we go. All right. Cool. So we're going to talk about paid ads, and we're going to talk about them specifically through a couple different lenses. One of them, we'll look at some of the features that are built in the Shopify, but we're also going to talk about the different types of ads and some of the different methods and strategies and things surrounding paid ads. Anytime we talk about advertising or marketing or spending money, especially on ads and things like that, we're always going to talk about branding, marketing essentials, and basics. It just goes back to that whole idea of making sure that the money you spend on your advertising and marketing is used wisely. If you're spending money to bring people to your site and your site doesn't look good, your brand isn't in good shape, you don't have a well-defined target audience, you may not be using your ad spend or your money or your resources or your time the most effectively or efficiently. So you want to make sure that's in good shape. We're going to talk about some different types of ads, and that'll be kind of the bulk of the meat of the workshop today. And then we'll talk about the Shopify marketing feature as well. For those of you that are using Shopify, you'll have some context there. I'm going to shut off my camera so I'm not distracting everyone here as I'm flopping all around every place. Go. All right. At any point in time, if anyone has any questions, drop them in here. I will drop in the link for more in the chats. Here we go. For one-on-one sessions and some more workshops and resources and things like that. Away we go. So one of the things before we get started, I want to make sure we're really clear about is that this is talking about paid advertising. So we're talking about spending money, giving $50 to Facebook to put an ad in front of a set number of people. Why is that important to clarify? Well, it's really not sustainable to grow a business or really run your entire business solely based on paid ads. And that's kind of a myth or misconception that's out there in the world, is that paid ads is really how you grow and run and bring people to your business. You would go broke as a small business trying to pay for every set of eyeballs to look at your brand or look at your site. It's really not scalable. Let's say you need 30,000 people, 30,000 visitors a month to your site to, make some of your goals. You couldn't really afford to pay for that again and again and again. It's just not really sustainable. Organic marketing is really where you're going to drive that free vetted traffic around the clock. And that's things like your typical normal everyday social media posts. That's your SEO, things like that. That's going to drive your free round the clock traffic. Paid ads, generally speaking, are going to be surgical. They're going to be done in a way that they're strategic. They're there to achieve a set goal. It might be I'm going to run this paid ad and I'm going to spend $50 and I'm going to get, I know my customer is worth $70 each or whatever, and I'm going to spend $50 and I'm going to get 150 new email subscribers this week using this ad. It's a goal and it's got a return on that investment and it's a set time frame, and you have something that you can measure against. A paid ad is going to be like that. It's not going to be I'm just going to keep running ads and just hope people keep coming to my site again and again and again. That's not really a great strategy. And we see a lot of small businesses that say I need to get some sales, I'm going to run paid ads. I'm going to run some sales, or I need to get some customers, I'm going to run paid ads. And more often than not, they're pretty disappointed because what they see are these peaks and valleys, right? They run a paid ad, they get a few customers, maybe a sale or two, and then when they're not running ads, they get nothing. And then they start to feel like unless I'm spending a ton of money on paid advertising, I can't have a business, I can't have sales. And obviously that's disheartening. It's there's no way you could literally run paid ads around the clock 7 days a week, 365 days a year for 10 years, 20 years. It's just not really possible. So we generally talk about organic marketing quite a bit in that sense. as we are talking paid ads today, we are going to be looking at them through that lens of something that's a little more strategic. So when we talk about these ads and we talk about running ads, keep in mind that in theory, these are going to be something that's done as a one-off, something that's done with a goal in mind, that they're going to be strategic. They're not going to be something that's going to run 7 days a week, every day around the clock and all these kinds of things. But what are some of the benefits of using paid ads? So there are some distinct benefits of them. And one of the biggie is really tapping into the power of, Facebook and Google. It's one of the biggest things that's out there in terms of numbers, in terms of resources at your fingertips. As a small business owner, it sometimes feels like it's tough to compete with the big boys, the Nikes and the, Targets and all those kind of people. But really, leveraging Amazon, leveraging Facebook and Instagram and Google is one thing that can really, really help you. There are over 1 billion monthly active Instagram users, and we all know that Instagram is really, really popular. There's 1.7 billion Facebook users monthly. Now, these are worldwide numbers. People say Facebook is dead. We hear that a lot. Well, but just look at that number. There's still more monthly active Facebook users than Instagram. And another interesting statistic about that is that more than 60% of Facebook users still log on every single day to check their Facebook accounts every day. The difference really between these two is that the way we use Facebook has changed over the last few years. Used to be Facebook was kind of like our Instagram. That was our social media. That's what we posted. I went to the store. This is what I had for lunch. Here's a picture of my lunch. It was that, instant social media kind of thing where we all connected. It's not really quite that way anymore. Now it's used, it's still used somewhat in that way, but now it's used a lot for business. It's used a lot for shopping. It's used a lot for research and to find out what your favorite brands are doing and for content and a lot more behind the scenes. In fact, if you went to look up a business that maybe you were interested in finding out more about, and that business didn't have a Facebook page, you might think that's a little weird. You might even question if that business is legit. You might feel kind of sketchy if they didn't have a Facebook page, especially if it's a new business you never heard of. They're asking you to spend, $350 on some product and they don't even have a Facebook page. It could give you pause. And that little bit of pause, that little bit of hesitation can be enough to cost you sales. And then Google, of course. Google is, there's other search engines out there, but Google's the big bully on the block. It's 5.8 billion daily Google searches. So that is a ton of searches out there. It's a ton of use. We all use it. Everyone uses it. We use it for maps. We use it for searches. We use it for all kinds of things in our daily life. The nice part about this is that they have an algorithm built into all of these, and they have tools built in that all small business owners can tap into for, literally a couple dollars at a pop, and tap into it and tap into their network of people. And their algorithm will help place your ad, your marketing, your product, your brand in front of, potentially millions of people. Now, there's a lot of, and we'll get into a little more later, there's a lot of pros and cons, and there's definitely a lot of changes there, in terms of like what Apple just did with their iOS 14 updates and, Facebook changing their algorithms and things like that. There's definitely a lot of things out there that aren't always working in favor of small businesses. So there is a sense that if you're going to be leveraging these, you have to understand the game and you have to understand the playing field, and you have to understand that you are playing somewhat by their rules. But what's the alternative? Is not using these tools? That doesn't make a lot of sense. If we talk about the sheer benefit of tapping into these people, right? Tapping into this big of an audience. If you don't do that, what else is out there for you really? That's anything comparable. Talk to someone who's selling CBD and they're not really able to market using Google or Facebook or Instagram, for example. It's really, really challenging. There's tools out there and it can be done, but it's really, really challenging. Leaning into this and understanding that, yeah, there's things that are not ideal, but the pros greatly outweigh the cons. The benefit of having this size of an audience that you can reach into for just a couple of dollars here and there, you know, it's huge. In fact, if you look at your phone, if you just pick it up and you start scrolling right now, count how many posts it takes on Instagram till you see an ad. You may not even notice them because we're kind of trained to see them now. But usually it's somewhere between 3 and 5 posts. Every 3 to 5 posts, you're going to see an ad. That's that power of marketing and power of retargeting. We'll talk about retargeting in a few minutes, but it's getting that product and your company and your brand in front of the right people at the right time. And, you know, prior to Facebook and Instagram and all of that, that was something that really only the really biggest companies were able to do. Billboards and newsprint and newspapers and magazines and things like that. And the small companies didn't really have that kind of power. You have this power now. It's just a matter of taking advantage of it and understanding a few basics. Before we get too far down that road, though, let's make sure that everything is in good shape. I've talked about this before. I talk about it again and again. Probably 80% of the business owners I talk to face, it probably comes back to some degree of a branding conversation at some point, unfortunately. It's something that gets neglected. It's something that gets overlooked. And I think it is, it's a combination of things. One, there's a sense of urgency, right? You launch your business, you want to get it up and make some money. There's also a sense of, a lot of times we say, yeah, be an entrepreneur, launch a website, launch a business, get started, start your dream. But not a lot of people really explain those first steps, those first couple baby steps of how to do that. And then, you have businesses that have been out there for a while, and the world changes and society changes and people change and culture changes. And we don't go back and revisit our branding often enough. We don't go back every 6 months or every year and take a look at our target audience. Has it evolved? Has it changed? What does our photography look like? What does our copy look like? Is it still relevant with our product and with the current society that we live in and all these kinds of things? It's really no different than anything else, right? You're going to invite someone over to your house. Great. You're going to do the dishes. You're going to clean up your house. You're going to make the bed. You're going to tidy up a little bit. It's exactly the same thing we're going to do here. Because with paid ads, we're going to invite a whole lot of people to your website. But before we do that, we want to tidy up. We want to make sure everything's in good shape. We're going to make sure everything is right so that when that audience comes, we're going to be able to get the most out of that visit when they show up. Unique selling proposition. Unique selling proposition is essentially what's unique about your brand or your business. What makes you different? It can be anything, essentially. You can be a Latino-owned business, woman-owned business, Black-owned business, Indigenous-owned business. It can be that everything is handcrafted. It can be that your return policy is amazing, social care. You give the charity. It can be that things are eco-friendly, sustainable. It can be almost anything. It's just something you're leaning into. This is something that's a bit unique about us, and you're going to kind of lean into that. However, there's a bit of a flip side. That's not quite enough. To say that I have a store selling, sneakers is great, or even better, a store that sells sneakers using, you know, uh, imported Italian leather. That's very great. That's great. That's awesome. But again, so what? It sounds like an expensive sneaker. But what value does that really add to the customer, the person buying it? Why do they care if it's imported Italian leather? Other than it sounds really fancy and they probably paid a lot of money for it. Does it age better? Does it last longer? Does it, have a certain patina to it over time? What's the benefit to the customer? So that's really the other side of it, is what benefit to the customer does that difference offer? So it's, how are you different? What's unique about your brand, and what benefit does that offer to customer, or why should they care about that difference? Why is that difference valuable? If you can show them why they should care about that, why that's valuable to them, you're going to move them through that funnel. You're going to move them down towards conversion a lot more efficiently than someone who shows up to your site and isn't quite sure what you do, why it's different, and even really why they care. This is a really good example of a landing page. When you land on a website, subconsciously you have about 3 seconds to really figure out where am I at? What do they sell? What do they do? Is it right for me? Do I care? And all these kinds of things. Now, when you land on here right away, you know they sell shoes. Super clear. All right. But over here, eco-friendly. Now, no one's going to read this copy right away. I hate to say that because it's kind of discouraging. But 70% of your visitors are going to skim your page before they read anything. They're just going to quickly skim. And when you skim this, you're going to see shoes, eco-friendly. That's the message they're going to get right away. That's your unique selling proposition, right? We sell eco-friendly shoes. Boom. If they get that right away, and if that is something that resonates with them, they're in. They're gonna they're likely gonna click, and then they're gonna go back and read through these things. If they're not interested in eco-friendly, they're interested in shoes. That you still likely have them, right? But if you didn't have this, you just had a pair of shoes and you had all this copy, they might then you're really are they really interested in just this pair of shoes? They look kind of like a lot of other shoes. What's unique about these shoes? Why should they care that you're just selling another pair of canvas shoes like so many others on the market? There's really nothing that unique about it. In fact, your label and brand is actually called nothing new, right? By name, you're telling them there's nothing unique about this. So why should they care? You have to really convey that very, very quickly. If you can do this with your website, and it's very hard. But if you could do this with your website, you start seeing a lot more in terms of conversions, a lot more in terms of clicks, and the way customers and visitors engage with your site. In fact, visitors become customers and subscribers a lot more efficiently and effectively this way. Now, if they had done a landing page like this, of course, yeah, I mean, all these things are valid points, right? All these things are something different about the shoe. But again, you have 3 seconds. I can digest this very, very quickly at a glance. Try and have to ask someone to land on your page and digest this in 3 seconds. Probably not going to happen. This might be fine for a social media post, like a Facebook post with some content and all that. But asking someone to land on a page and swallow all this at a quick glance and understand it and take it all in, it's a little much. Keep it simple, keep it succinct, keep it easily digestible. Great photography, bold, vivid colors, grab their attention. Once they're on the hook, then you can kind of feed them. Then you can kind of get them to read the information. But asking too much too soon, is not going to be a great strategy. Photography and graphics are one of the most important parts of the puzzle now. Since Instagram has kind of trained us to shop for our eyes, dating sites, Amazon, all these things, we make decisions in just a second based on our first glance. It's, like it or not, it's just kind of the way of the world. We look at something and right away we make a decision. We like this or we don't like this. It's very much the same thing with websites, very much the same thing with shopping. And there's really two types of photography that are really, really relevant to not just e-commerce, but commerce in general, because it applies to menus, it applies to, window signs in stores, it applies to just about anything. But down here we have our product photography shots. Now these are mental, these are cerebral, these are the kind of things where you're going to be looking at it and understanding that the build quality looks good, the color looks good, the style looks good. It's to justify the value, justifies the price. It validates the purchase decision, right? It's a mental exercise. You're basically checking boxes. Does this look good? Yes. Is the quality good? Yes. Do I like the colors? Yes. Right? Ticking the boxes. When you get up here, this is where the mind gets a little bit funny. This is where it starts to kind of put the product into your own life. This is where you make an emotional and psychological connection with the product. And you don't really have a choice in the matter. It's just the way the mind kind of works. You see the glasses and you see them on him and go, you see those glasses look good on him. What that really translates to is those glasses look good on me. What your brain starts telling you is this guy looks happy. He looks cool. He looks hip. I could look cool. I could look hip. I could be happy if I just had this product. It's just like the double mint gum commercials where everyone's at the beach running around in their bikinis and a bonfire and they're happy. Has nothing to do with chewing the gum. It's about everybody wanting to have that happy life. Everybody wanting to have that great afternoon at the beach. It's making you kind of want that better life. And whatever this product is, apparently can help you do that. It's playing those mind games with you. There's a couple other things that product photography can get into and lifestyle photography gets into. One of the biggest is scale. So if you're looking at a handbag or you're looking at a watch or some glasses, for example, they will help show you the size as it relates to a human body. This is really important with like a handbag, for example. I can tell you that a bag is, you know, 16 by 14 by 22, but what does that really mean until you see someone with the purse over their shoulder? And then you kind of understand how it hangs, what the shape of it is, how it kind of forms, how it relates to the body in terms of size. Then you get a better understanding of that. But just dimension sometimes doesn't really do the trick. I can tell you these glasses are 2 inches across on each frame, doesn't really mean much to you, but when you see them on someone's face, then you get a bit of a scale, you get a bit of perspective. So lifestyle photography also helps in that sense that it can move someone a little bit, it can reassure them of that purchase decision by giving them that comfort that, yes, this is going to fit, it's going to look right, it's going to be what I envision it being. Copywriting, that whole act of writing copy, is really a tricky thing, right? It's science, it's art, it's a little bit all kind of mixed in there. We use it all the time: product titles, product descriptions, promotional emails, Facebook ads, SEO. We use it in when we're talking to people, answering chats and things like that. It's really that idea that you're strategically writing something that persuades someone to take some kind of action. Click on this, give me your email address, tag a friend, getting to do something. We use it all the time, constantly in business. We don't even realize that we use it so often, but it's really challenging to do well. And frankly, it's something that most business owners are not going to be very good at in the beginning. It's something that you'll get better at over time. You'll get better at, the more you do it, for sure. And your copy will actually get more accurate and more targeted the more you lean into your data and the more you understand your target audience and the more you understand your business and your unique selling proposition and who's coming to your store and all those kinds of things. They'll actually help you with your copy. You begin to understand who's coming, what they're looking for, what's important to them, where they're coming from, what they're passionate about, and you'll be able to actually kind of tailor your copy to these people. Now, not talking necessarily about product descriptions and all that. We're talking about paid ads here today. So in relation to paid ads, copy is actually a little bit of a simpler, well, I won't say it's a simpler process because that's not necessarily true. It's generally short and simple, right? You want to speak in a very consistent brand voice, no matter where you're writing. If someone engages your brand on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, your website, emails, it should always sound the same. It should be the same tone, same voice, same kind of feel and vibe. But with a paid ad, like a Facebook ad, just like you see here, it's very short. You really don't have a lot of room for copy. You don't have a lot of characters for copy. So you definitely want to make sure that you're able to do this in a way that's clear and concise and gets the point across, but at the same time is inviting and warm and all those kinds of things. Again, it takes practice, it takes time, it takes some thought. So it's not something that you're just necessarily going to wing it and you're just going to wake up in the morning and, what the hell, I'll throw an ad together. It should be something that you have some strategy. You have a plan. You're going to sit back and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but you're going to have a plan. On Thursday, I'm going to do this ad for this product. This is going to be the result I'm looking for. This is going to be the copy. And you spent some time kind of working on this copy. Something like over here, you've left something she was about to love behind in your cart. That took me a couple of reads to really figure out what, to put all that together. I didn't catch it the first time I read through it. Just a few clicks and it's all yours. Yeah, super simple, super clear, right? And then over here, they're actually asking for engagement. Lots of different kinds of strategy, lots of different kinds of copy out there. It's whatever fits your brand and whatever fits your target audience. As we're writing down into, I always include this in there because it's a great example, but as we're moving into product descriptions and any other kind of copy, really, a good strategy is always to start off with something that's positive and resonates with your target audience. If we say something like, we all love Starbucks in the morning, pretty much everyone nods their heads and goes, yeah, we all love pizza, we all love tacos, we all have our favorite hoodie on a Saturday. Something that resonates with your audience and gets them to kind of nod their head and agree. In this case, super soft, the way a flannel shirt should be. We would all agree with that statement. What that's doing is getting your audience, it's what you're saying is resonating with your audience. It's getting them to kind of agree with what you're saying. It's getting them on the hook. It's inviting, it's positive. If you said something negative and salesy, like our shirts are the best, buy one now, it's very cold. It's very salesy. People are going to say, yeah, whatever, and move on. Because it's positive, because it resonates with them, it invites them to keep reading. And as they do, it's essentially just an exercise in unique selling proposition. It's explaining to them why this shirt is different. Even here, it goes to a point about wearing it as a jacket, explains to them how they could use this in their life, and then some unique features that are unique to the product. It's just all about explaining how the product is different and how that difference is going to benefit them in their life. But all of that is a bit, it's not futile, but it's definitely going to be challenging if you get your target audience wrong. You could have the greatest website in the world with the best copy and the best photography, and everything about the site could be absolutely flawless, and you're selling children's toys, but you send it to me as a paid ad. I don't have any children, so the odds of me actually responding well to that ad, probably not great. Even if I did click onto that ad and came onto your website, what are the odds I'm going to buy something or really spend any time there clicking around? Not much. So target audience is really everything. Target audience will influence your photography. It'll influence your copy. It'll influence your website, your site design, your colors, your font, your everything. 47-year-old guy. If I come to a website and it's pink and it's lots of cursive fonts and there's little kids playing with toys on there, am I really going to stick around and click around and think, well, maybe there's something here for me? Probably not, right? We do it every day in our lives. We see people on the street and we speak to them and we adjust how we speak to them based on who we perceive them to be. If they're 70 years old, we speak to them differently than a 10-year-old. We speak to our best friends differently than we speak to a doctor or a pastor. We naturally adjust how we speak to people based on who we perceive them to be. And it's very much the same way with your target audience. You want to speak to them through your copy in a voice or a tone that will resonate with them. What's appropriate to them, what's comfortable to them, what is relevant to them with the right kinds of language, the right kinds of words. If it's seniors, it's going to be a very different tone and type of vibe than if it's teens, or maybe it's young 20s, and it's going to be a little bit edgier, and emojis and some cursing and coarse language and things like that. Adjusting this constantly is going to really keep your store feeling fresh. The last thing you want to do is have outdated slang on your website and people are coming there and you just feel like you're trying to be hip, but it's not authentic. So I mentioned this earlier about revisiting your branding. It's exactly the point. For example, if this picture stays up for 5 years and someone comes back here in 5 years and these styles are no longer fashionable, it's going to make your website look and feel out of date, not with the times. And it's going to cause people to not want to shop because it feels like your site is out of date, not with the times, not relevant, and it's not going to be something that's going to kind of resonate with that audience. Another website, another landing page. And again, clear call to action, right? Product, what it is, target audience, fonts, all these kind of things, unique selling proposition. It's a good example of some lifestyle photography right here. Very specific market demographic. If done right, that demographic will visit the store. It relates to the image, it relates to the product and the font and all this kind of thing. The wrong target audience, again, you got me coming to this website, probably not going to resonate with me. And am I really going to spend significant time clicking around in here thinking, well, maybe they have something for me after all? Probably not. It doesn't look right for me. It doesn't feel right to me. The font, the colors, nothing about here is inviting for me to go click around. So at the end of the day, everything really is influenced by your target audience, and having that well-defined target audience, understanding who they are, and really building your site and your brand around who that target audience is and what resonates with them is really, really important. That being said, let's get into some paid ads, some marketing, because that's kind of why we're all here. So there's a few common ad types that we've probably seen on internet or social media or whatever. And they are Facebook dynamic retargeting ads. And those are kind of like the creepy ads where, you've Googled Nike shoes and then suddenly you get Nike ads popping up everywhere. That's what that is. And then there's Google shopping ads. We see these all the time, the Facebook ads and the Google ads. And it's kind of weird, right? You'll Google Shopify and suddenly Shopify is popping up on your YouTube, it's popping up on your Amazon, it's popping up in your emails, it's popping up everywhere. That's retargeting. That's exactly what that is. It's highly effective. It's actually really, really cheap and easy to do, and we can all do that, but it's a little weird feeling sometimes. But let's break down the differences between these and see how they all kind of work. So Facebook dynamic retargeting ads. Sometimes you see these called dynamic ads. Sometimes you see them called retargeting ads. Which really depends on where you're reading. But these generally are here to promote relevant products to customers who have already expressed interest on your website or somewhere else on the internet. So they could have visited your store, they could have bought some of your products, they could have Googled it, they could have looked for something similar. They could have checked in on Facebook to a business that sells something similar. I mean, it could have been anything online connected to the internet that is relevant to your product. And that's a pretty big, broad term. Um, they could have been in a mall, checked into a Foot Locker, and now they're getting, retargeting ads for Adidas shoes. Literally that simple. But you can then recreate, once they've done that, you can create a single ad template that will automatically use assets from your products in your store to show these ads to these people. So essentially, let's say these joggers, this is your brand here, you can decide you're going to create an ad or retarget people who have shown interest somewhere in something similar to these joggers. Maybe they went to Target and looked at sweatpants. Maybe they were on Amazon shopping for joggers. Who knows? Whatever. On Googling joggers, who knows? But in theory, you can run this ad and it will target these people. And you can do that for very, very, very cheap. Google Smart Shopping campaigns are a fully automated campaign. So they're a little bit different, right? Because they are fully automated. You don't really have as much control, as much power. They use this kind of smart bidding algorithm, I think they call it, that allows you to advertise across all. So you're not just advertising on Google, but it's across all their services. So that's like Google Search, YouTube, Gmail, all these kind of things. Google is going to determine where they're going to show it, what they're going to show, who they're going to show it to, when they're going to show it. They're going to do all that stuff for you, which we'll talk about a little bit, but it's good and it's bad. You're just going to set a daily budget, and the campaign is going to optimize for the highest sales value based on kind of automatically choosing which product to advertise, how much to bid, who to target, and all those kinds of things. The one good about this, the biggest pro about this whole thing with Google, is that you only pay for the ad when someone clicks on it. So you can have this Google Smart Shopping campaign out there, and you only get charged if someone actually clicks on the ad itself, which is kind of a nice pro. The downside, of course, that you don't have a lot of control over who they show it to, where they place it, time of day, what product, anything else. You don't have a lot of control, and you don't have a lot of analytical insight on the back end either. So there's pros and cons to it. We got a little video here from Google, I think.
You've put a lot of work into your business, and it's time to get noticed. Introducing Google Smart Shopping Campaign, a powerful marketing tool that helps shoppers find you with targeted ads. Setting up a campaign in Shopify is simple. Pick existing products from your Shopify store. Set your daily budget, and launch your campaign. Google Smart Technology takes care of all the details, like bidding and ad placement, so you can drive the most sales for your budget. Your ad will appear on search, email, YouTube, and across Google's display network. You don't need to be a marketing expert, and you only pay when shoppers click on your ads. Create your campaign in Shopify today. Help shoppers find you.
All right, sounds pretty good, right? Now there's some pros and cons, and we're again, how do we do this? But let's talk about some pros and cons of these real quick. Let me go back up here, a couple things. Boom, boom. All right, some pros and cons with Google and Facebook. With Google, I mentioned already, you don't have a lot of analytics, you don't have a lot of data, you don't have some of those kinds of things. You only click on, you only pay for what you click on. One of the biggest cons is that Google's algorithm, just like with SEO, takes a long time to really understand your business, your brand, your product, your traffic, to analyze it all, to optimize it all. So whereas Facebook, I could run an ad today, a paid ad today, I could run it for 3 days, and I get insights and analytics, and I get potentially results. With Google, it can take at least a month before they even are able to optimize your ad correctly. Now, remember, you're only paying if someone clicks on it. So it probably doesn't cost you anything to be out there. However, you just know that this is the long game. You're probably going to want to run this Google ad for at least 2 months, because it's going to take 30 days for Google to even really be able to optimize it. And then you really want to run that ad for another 2 weeks or a month to really be able to enjoy the benefits of that optimization. So it's a much different strategy in terms of the length of time and the length of time you're going to get that return on, right? One of the biggest things. Secondly, amount of control. With the Facebook ad, you're going to be able to, we're going to see this all in a minute. We're going to walk through all creating all these, but you're going to be able to dictate what you want to display, who you want to display it to, where you want to display it, how much, and all these kinds of things. With Google, not really so much. You're pretty much only going to be able to say, yeah, Google, show something of mine to some people, and they're going to show something of yours to some people somewhere, but that's about as much control as you have. Um, you don't really get to dictate where or when or whom or what product or anything else. The nice part is that the more products that people, whatever the more popular items are, Google's going to automatically optimize it. So if this red pour over coffee thing is getting the most clicks, Google's going to move it to the top, right? Google's automatically going to keep optimizing your ad to show the right product to the right person at the right time. And it's going to keep doing that for you, which is kind of nice. You know, people always ask, well, why don't we hear more about Google Shopping then? Part of it is people don't understand how it works and they want to run it for a week, 2 weeks, and they don't see the results and they just turn it off. The other thing is that they don't like that giving up that control. As a small business owner, you want to control your money, you want to control your time, you want to control, your brand and everything else. I totally get all that. To me, as I look at these, I generally look at these as a number one and a number two. I think Facebook is a great primary strategy for paid ads. You have a lot more control and you can go in with very surgical precision. I want to target this group of people at this time with this product, and I want to get this result. It's very surgical, it's very precision. With Google, it's a little more broad. I want to get some clicks, I want to get some traffic, I want to get some stuff, I want to do these things, but I'm not able to really be surgical with this because I don't have that control. And I don't really have that same amount of analytical data to really understand my goals on the backside. So for me, I would always think of Facebook as probably your primary paid ad strategy, and then Google Shopping Network as maybe your secondary. They both have great SEO benefits as well. You know, Facebook, we'll talk about in a second some more, but Facebook, when you spend that money, it's like going to Vegas and putting, $50 on the table. Either you win or lose, right? Google, you only pay when someone clicks on it. So you get a little more of a safety net in there. So it's going to run for 2 months, and you got $50 on it, but you're pretty sure that you're really going to get some benefit out of it at some point. If nothing else, it's recognition and SEO and things like that. But let's look at how these things kind of work and how these all kind of run and all this kind of stuff. All right. So we're going to look this at the Shopify marketing tab because it's easier than going in and out of everything else. But I will break this down as how you would do this if you weren't using Shopify or if you were going in and out of Google and Facebook and things on their own. So, all right. So if you aren't using Shopify, you're going to need to go into your Google. Basically, you're going to set up your Google Merchant account, your Google Search Console, and you're basically going to have to do all your Google ads from within Google. And all of your Facebook ads, you're going to have to do from, you're going to have to set up your Facebook Business Manager, Facebook Ad Manager, Facebook Commerce Manager, and you're probably going to be running these from your Facebook Ad Manager. It's a very different process. Once you're integrating the ad, it's very similar, but actually this part of it is just a bit different to manage. You'll be going into different websites to manage it. But from here, in this point, if you're in Shopify, you just click on Create Campaign. And yeah, we know creating your first Facebook campaign. All right, Create Campaign. The nice part about using the marketing tab, if you have this, is that you'll be able to do Pinterest, Snapchat, email marketing, SMS marketing. What else you got? Email marketing, Facebook ads, Facebook posts. You can do Google ads, all from right within Shopify, and then you have everything in one place. So you can actually go down here and you'll see right here. You have this little dashboard right here. You would actually have several columns. This might be Facebook. This might be Instagram. This might be Google. This might be Pinterest. It'll show you all your current marketing ads that are running in one place. So you just get kind of a quick snapshot on how everything's doing, and then you can click into them and see, drill down into performance and things like that. As a small business owner, when I opened my first restaurant, um, I had to go into Facebook. Then you had to go into Google. Then you had to go into YouTube. Then you had to go into Instagram. You had to go into every different. It's like running 7 different small businesses, like into every different website to look at the results and manage each one of those. What it does, it puts everything in one place, so you can manage all these from one little place. So this would pop up, And you have a couple selections here. So in this case, we're going to do that dynamic retargeting ad that we talked about. You could do a post, you could do an audience building ad. If you're just getting started, right? If you're just starting out and you're just launching your business and you have less than 500 followers on Facebook, spending a little bit of money on a Facebook audience building ad might be a pretty good spend. I don't mean like don't spend $1,000, don't get crazy, but spending, 20 bucks, something like this on a Facebook audience building ad might make some sense. A question comes up a lot. Do I need to have an audience to do paid ads? And technically, no. You can have 0 followers and do a paid ad, and technically, some people will see that ad. Where it comes into play is how Facebook's algorithm looks at your brand, looks at your Facebook account, and determines how many people to show it to, right? Without getting too deep into this, I'm one guy and I make one post. Does Facebook really care? Does it really see me as something they should take seriously? Probably not. If I'm one guy and I have 1,000 followers and I've done 1,000 posts and now I'm doing a paid ad, Facebook pays a little more attention. Their algorithm ranks me a little bit higher. It sees me as something that, potentially could bring them more money. I mean, let's put the cards on the table, right? Mark Zuckerberg might be the nicest dude on the planet, but Facebook is a business. And at the end of the day, they're not a charity here to help you and I. They're here to make money for their shareholders like everyone else. So, they do have that sense of how can they make the most out of this as well. And they're going to make more money out of someone who has more followers and is more active on their platform versus someone who has no followers and isn't very active. So that's kind of how their algorithm will take a look at your brand, your business, and decide a little bit of how to show it to. So an audience building ad, getting yourself up to 500 or 1,000 followers, can help your paid ad strategy a little bit. It's a little more complex than all that. Of course, there's a lot more goes into it. But just as a rule of thumb, 500 to 1,000 followers would be a really good, healthy place to be when you're running a paid ad strategy. And of course, the more the merrier and all that. But let's look at this dynamic retargeting ad right here. Super simple to run this at this point. Activity name. As we're running an activity name, think about the future. Don't think about today. When it's next year and you want to go back and look at last year's ads, you want to be able to understand what was this ad and why did I do this? If you just title it ad 1, that's not going to help you. You're not going to know what it was. So title it Mother's Day 2012 or, Christmas early promotion 2012, whatever that might be. Something that gives you context. So when you see a list of ads, you can pick out the one that you want and understand this is what this ad was. Whatever your naming convention is, just kind of stick with it. But use something that would mean something to you 2 years down the road, because eventually you'll have a whole list of ads. And when it's just ad 1 or just ad 7 or whatever, you have no idea what that really, really means at all. Now, this is where you put in your ad copy. This is that part we said earlier. Please, I beg you, don't leave this in here. These favorites are worth a look. I see it probably once a week. I see an ad where someone has just left that in there. Don't do that. Be better than that, please. Be a little more creative. I don't care what you do. Just don't leave that in there. Um, that's just Facebook's default, thing. This is something where you have to be a little bit creative. This is something where you really want to talk about what's unique about your brand, what's different about your brand. You want to grab someone's attention, right? This is some pop and sizzle. Why do I want to take a look? If I'm scrolling through Facebook, what's going to get my attention? What's going to make me want to stop and click? Give me something to kind of look at. Give me something to dive into here. Explain why it's different, that unique selling proposition for sure. Next down, budget. This is a biggie. First of all, make sure you're over here and you're looking at is this daily? Is this monthly? What is this looking at? Because if you put in $100 and you're thinking that's a month and you have that set for daily, you're not going to be happy. You're going to have a very, very bad weekend, most likely. Right? Now, I'm going to get down to the next part here. This is all great. You start an end date, you start a start date. Okay, all great. So you set your budget, right? I'll get to that in a second. But that blue box right here, most of the time is going to be unchecked. What do you think happens if there's no end date set? Facebook is going to run the hell out of that credit card until there's no more money on that credit card. And when you pay that bill, they're going to run it some more. And they're going to keep running it and keep running it until you go in here and shut it off. They will keep doing it. So please set an end date. Save yourself the pain. Otherwise, that $10 will just keep running $10 a day for the rest of your life until that credit card blows up. So do yourself a favor and set an end date. Now let's talk about this pricing as a strategy. I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money. It's the last thing I want you to do. I want to do. However, Facebook, have you ever tried to call Facebook support? They didn't even have a phone number. Facebook's not going to give your money back if the ad doesn't do well. You put $100 on that ad and you don't get any traffic, any sales, anything out of it. You can't call Facebook and say, hey, I made a mistake. It didn't do well. Can I get $100 back? Get a refund? That's not really a thing. It's pretty unlikely that's going to happen. What you can do is put $2 on the ad, put $5 on the ad, put $10 on the ad. Start small. If it does well, yeah, now you have some data. Now you have some knowledge. Now you have some insight. Okay, cool. Now I'll put a little more. I'll do it again and put a little more on it. If it doesn't do well, make a couple changes and do it again. Be smart about this. I see a lot of people that think the more money you spend, the better, the more people it shows, the more the algorithm works in your favor. There is some truth to that, right? However, it's not worth not having food on the table because you're trying to maximize the algorithm's output. Because a bad ad is going to be a bad ad, whether you spend $50 or $100. The algorithm is not going to make a bad ad into a good ad in the eyes of your target audience. Spend $5. If you get a few clicks, you get a few likes, you get something that's encouraging, do it again. Up the budget a little bit. See what that results are. Tiptoe into that water a little bit. See what it's like. And if you do it a couple times and every time it's a little more of a positive response, yeah, maybe it's time to throw the big money on there and kind of take a little bit more of a gamble. But it's an educated guess then. If it's your first ad and you don't know what's going to happen and you just walk up and drop $500 on it and that it doesn't work out, it could be tough around dinner time this weekend. And I don't want that for anyone's family. And that's really what happens with small businesses, right? Money is tight, budgets are tight. Businesses fail over $500 and things sometimes. So be smart with these kind of budgets. Set an end date, use your money wisely, check the little details like daily or monthly budgets, and tiptoe into these things. There's nothing wrong with doing an ad for $5 and monitoring the results. Now, I wouldn't say run ads all the time at $5 because you do want to get some better results at some point. But if you're just trying to see, hey, does my target audience respond well to this kind of picture or this kind of copy or this kind of video? Yeah, absolutely. Spend $5, look at the results, look at the impact. If it's great, cool. If it's not, then go back to the drawing board, tweak a few things, and try it again with small money. Move down here, back up. Once that's done, there's one more thing on what you want to do. Always look at this as a mobile and desktop view. Always preview it. Most of your customers are going to be looking at it on a mobile. So even though this is going to default to a desktop, always look at it on a mobile view. Make sure it looks good, the copy, the pictures, all that good stuff. And then when that's all done, go ahead and schedule it. Go ahead and rock it out. You can always finish it later if you're busy and you're going to take off to go, do whatever. All right, 3 different types of ads on here. Which one grabs your attention the most? Which one's the better ad? A lot of people say the middle one, the video. I like to play devil's advocate, right? So I look at that middle one and I say, well, they could be selling pants at first glance. I don't know they're selling shoes right away. What grabbed my attention was the movement and the activity, but they very well could have been selling pants or socks or anything else, right? Nothing about that really screamed shoes to me. This one, great photography, very clear they sell shoes. I get what they do, right? This one shows a little bit of variety. So they sell some different colors of shoes, a few different styles of shoes. Okay, cool. In terms of copy, this one's giving me a little bit more. Sustainable, recyclable, all that kind of good stuff. So they're each a little different. They have some different strengths and weaknesses. So this is kind of what goes to my point earlier. you don't know necessarily what's going to work well with your target audience until you really start to work with your target audience. You might find that a video is gold, but you may not really understand that until you try it, unfortunately. There's a lot of A B testing, there's a lot of trial and error with paid ads because your target audience is going to not to say be finicky, but they're going to react to whatever they react to. And unfortunately, that's going to change and evolve. And, we don't have some kind of a crystal ball we can look into and say, well, they're going to really love this one because it's got a hand and a thing on it. We really don't know. So you could spend $100 on this and maybe it works out, or you could spend, $3 on this and $3 on this and $3 on this and gather some data about what your audience really likes and then use that going forward. It's just a strategy. It's just a suggestion. Every business is going to be a little different. Every audience is a little bit different. Some businesses have a very, very clearly defined target audience, and you have a lot of competition that you can look at and see what they're doing and understand what's working for them, and you can grab that and use that. Others don't have that luxury, and you're really on your own, and you're having to kind of go out there and chop through the woods and figure out really what on your own what's what. I agree. I think that when you're on Instagram and you're on Facebook, anything that grabs someone's attention and gets them to stop for a second is a win. So anything like a video, anything with motion, any kind of a GIF is a giant win. Um, I love the photography in this first one on the left. However, I would probably just scroll right past it. Sad but true. On the right over here, with that white background and those colors, I would probably scroll right past it. It just looks like everything else on Instagram or Facebook. You just keep on scrolling. The video, I would probably stop or at least pause, especially if there's sound. It's like there's sound on it. All right. So let's talk about Google. Google here. Looks familiar, very much the same. Automation, create, boom, boom. All right. Activity name. Here we go again. Same thing as before. Make sure we're naming it something that we're going to remember and be able to reference 2 years from now. Now, as you see here in Google, Google's going to grab stuff for you, right? Google's going to do a lot of this stuff for you. So you're not going to have to pick products and you're not going to have to go through and set all these things in place. Campaign budget. We're going to get down to this in just a second, but campaign budget, the recommended daily minimum is $5 with Google. Because the way they're optimizing and because the way, if you look down here, we'll get here in a second, but the way they break up your budget, $5 is the recommended minimum. Not a lot, but $5 is still $5. And it still can add up over time, right? Scroll down, and then we're going to go to publish with this one. There is a couple things to know about these before we move forward with this. And that's right here, how it kind of works. So you only pay if someone clicks on a shopping ad. I mentioned that earlier. Google Ads uses a daily average budget. And that's important to understand because if your budget is $10, Google might spend $5 on one day and 15 on the next. It's going to constantly be flexing and optimizing things based on the amount of traffic online, the amount of searches online, the amount of traffic to your site and clicks and all kinds of different things within its algorithm. It's constantly going to be flexing. That's why it's important to let it ride out over a period of time. Another thing, campaigns run until paused. Keep that in mind. They run until paused. It will run forever until you go in and pause it. So at $5 a day, right? And then we already established it takes about 30 days for Google to rank your products and optimize. So let's say we're going to plan on running this for 60 days at $5 a day. So we're talking about a fairly decent amount of money here, right? We're talking about $300 or whatever here. So, okay, so we got $300, but unless you remember to go in and pause that after that 60 days, it's going to keep on running. So you got to set like a Google Calendar invite reminder to go in and actually turn off that ad. Otherwise, it's going to keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. And that's where it gets a little crazy. If you start thinking, well, I'll do $10 a day times 60 days, that gets kind of expensive. It can add up for sure. But it runs until you pause it, and you have to manually go into Google and pause it, or into your Shopify marketing and pause it. And remember, long game, 30 days minimum just for Google to figure things out. So probably plan on 60 days here. Now Google's going to create the ad for you. It's going to do this with every single ad, every single item that's synced to your store within your Shopify account. They're optimized based on customer behavior. Popular products are going to get most of your budget. So it's, again, Got to be constantly looking at your budget, constantly looking at the number of customers and clicks and all those kinds of things and figuring out what to be should be showing and who. And then it's going to test it across multiple platforms to figure out where it works the best, who gets them, where it gets the most clicks. The downside of that, I guess, could be you could wind up with seeing your product in the bottom of a Gmail. And how often do you see products in a Gmail? Or how often do you click on products placed on a Gmail? Not that often. But that might be where they determine the best type of customer for your product is. It may not be where you want it, may not be where you hope it is, but that's where they deem it to be the best. So it's not always kind of what you envision it being. You have to place a lot of trust in Google and you have to kind of write it out and just trust that they're doing what their data is showing as the best. And this is an example I pulled. So this is, you see here, this is Allbirds is a search. You got their ad right here, right? These are all sponsored. Okay, cool. And hey, if you're Allbirds, you're probably feeling pretty good about all this, right? You're popping up right at the top. But then you go, like, what's this guy doing over here? This doesn't quite fit. What the hell's happening here? And if you are this company, you're probably wondering, why the hell is my rubber sandal showing up next to men's Allbirds shoes? It's the wrong audience. It's the wrong style of shoe. It's the wrong price point. Like, this doesn't belong here at all. That's the kind of rub. That's the kind of con we're talking about with Google Ads. It's really one of the things you have to just kind of accept as being, sometimes they get it right. Occasionally it's going to be shown to the wrong kind of person, the wrong kind of audience, and the wrong kind of place, and just kind of a head scratcher. And that's what this is here. It's like, why is this here? It doesn't fit in with anything on this page at all. So going back, we're going to do a quick little review here, and we can talk some strategy. Establishing your brand, value proposition, establishing why your brand is different, why someone should care about it, what's unique about your brand or your product, and how that uniqueness benefits the customer. It's not good enough just to be different, but why is that difference valuable to the customer? Research and define your target audience. Target audience, target audience, target audience. You need to know them inside and out, what they do, what they care about, what they're passionate about, where they hang out, everything about them. You need to have a deep understanding of them, and you need to be current with your target audience. The last thing you want to do is be 5 years out of date with your target audience, and suddenly you're a store that's not current, and you have 5-year-old fashion, 5-year-old slang on your website, and suddenly you're just out of it. You're out of the game. Connect your ad platforms. If you're using Shopify, if you're using whatever platform you're using, integrate everything as much as possible. Google, Facebook, Instagram, email marketing, Pinterest, Etsy, whatever platforms you're using, have as many things integrated as possible. Make sure Google Analytics and Facebook Pixel are integrated. Collect as much data as you can so that when you're running all of this paid ad marketing, you're going to be able to get as much data as possible. I didn't talk that much about data because I didn't want to go down a data rabbit hole, but data really exists for one purpose. And it's not just to, justify things or to give you information. Data exists to help you make wiser business decisions, plain and simple. The more information you have, the better decisions you'll make. The better decisions you make, the more wisely you'll use your money and time and resources and everything else. If you knew that your customers all come online at 4 p.m., you're not going to run ads at 9 a.m. You're going to run ads at 4 p.m. or 3:30 p.m. It's going to be a better use of your money, a better use of your time. You're going to get a better result. It's just simple. I mean, it sounds common sense, but common sense isn't always that common. But it's really taking the time to dig into that data and collect that data. Set it up early, collect data as early as you can. Even if you don't know how to use it, you don't know what to do with it, you don't have any understanding of it, just gather it. There's plenty of people out here for free that will be glad to sit down with you and glad to walk you through it and show you how to use it and kind of help connect all the dots for you. No worries there. And then run campaigns. Think strategic. Think about what your goal is for these paid ads. What are you trying to accomplish? Don't just think I'm going to throw $5 or $50 or $500 in there because I need some sales. What are you really trying to get out of it? What is your return going to look like? If you're spending that $500, what are you trying to get back out of it? $1,500 in sales? Are you trying to get 1,000 followers? What are you trying to get back out of it over what period of time? And does that make business sense? If you're spending $500 and you're trying to get 1,000 followers, what is a follower worth to you? that data is out there. You have that data in your store, right? What does your average customer spend? Your average customer spends $20, but it's costing you $20 to get a customer. You're really just breaking even on that whole deal. So understanding some of these kinds of things will help you make better decisions regarding campaigns and how to run ads, where to run ads, what type of runs to add, what type of ads to run, things like this. Keep in mind the types of ads that are out there. Keep in mind that Google, for example, is going to take a minimum of 30 days just to understand who you are, what you do, and what you're all about. So that's going to be like a 60-day campaign at a minimum of $5 a day. So we're talking probably a $300 starting point with that. You're only going to pay when someone clicks, but that's really kind of what that starting point is. Facebook, much more surgical, much more precision. You can do a 3-day ad, a 5-day ad, a 7-day ad. You can target zip codes. You can target very specific demographics. You can do retargeting ads, which are awesome. And that's an easy way to go about things. But understand that there's an algorithm to play with, and there's a lot of trial and error. And walking into it and thinking I'm just going to run an ad and put $500 down and get it right the first time may not be the case. And so that might take a little bit of trial and error. It might take some research. It might take some run an ad, look at the analytics, understand what worked, what didn't work, run another one, and kind of figuring out what your secret sauce is, what that magic formula is. But all these go back to analyzing the data. You can't improve what you don't measure. So it goes back to again and again, taking a look and understanding what worked, what didn't work, and taking that next step logically. Anyone have any questions or anything I can answer in here? I know I'm just at the time, just almost at the mark. I want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Yeah, no, Chris, no, this was great. Lots of information, and I really like how it built upon the last presentation that you did. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to do it. Let me turn this and this little thing on here and here. All right.
Yeah, I think Kelly has already left. So I guess we'll just finish right now, and then you'll send this information on to Kelly.
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and stop the recording. Have a great day.